Go right into the verse. Is this interesting? That wasn't much of a response.
Yes, Maharaj.
You don't have to say yes, I'm just asking. We can say, let's I hope it gets more interesting, or maybe bring it up to the level of getting interesting. It's okay? Really? Seriously? I like it. It's really deep. So we'll go into verse number 3. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yadichir asvasam rajabhuvi ragam pati janur. I'll do it again. Radichur asvasam rajabhuvi saragam pati janur. Yuvadvandam tachat parichartum arhat abhilasahe. Sarupam Sirupam Saganami Hatasya Grajam Api. Sputam Painam Nityasmaram Namatada Tvam Shrinu Manah. So he says, listen, O mind. I'm speaking, so you better pay attention. He's saying to his mind, pay attention. If you desire, now he's asking his mind, if you desire, in every birth, to reside in the land of Raj with loving attachment, and to serve the youthful couple of Sri Sri Radha Krishna in close proximity. So he said, if you desire that, then you have to do this. Then clearly remember and offer obeisances to Sri Rupa, Sri Swarupa, Sri Rupa, and his associates in Vrindavan, and to Sri Rupa's elder brother, Sri Sanatan. Okay? So Sri Swarupa means Swarup Goswami, Swarup Damodar Goswami. Sri Rupa means Rupa Goswami, and then Sanatan Goswami. Then if you desire, so now he's letting his mind decide. I'm giving you the instructions, this is what you should do. Now have you the desire to develop that? If you do, if you like what I have said so far, then to make it successful you have to do this. And what is that? Clearly remember and offer obeisances to these personalities. So basically, he's talking about the Goswamis of Vrindavan, who are the representatives of Lord Chaitanya, who give Lord Chaitanya's teachings in the form of their writings, like that. So we have Srinivasacharya. He has written, who knows that song? Krishna Kirtana Gana Naipanipano Saddharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakadhina Tribhuvane Manyo Saranya Karo Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajanam Nandena Mataliko Bande Rupa Sanatano Raghuyagho Sri Jiva Gopalago. So in 8 verses he glorifies the position, the mood, the activities and the deep devotion of the 6 Goswamis in Vrindavan. Beautiful, beautiful prayer. So this verse addresses whether or not it's possible for someone to attain residence in Vrindavan with spontaneous love, which is called Ragatmika Bhakti. If one accepts instructions through initiation from any of the Vaishnava schools, is it possible to reach Vrindavan if they go through any of the Vaishnava schools? Not just, this is Bhakti Vinod, not just the school given by Lord Chaitanya. And then Rupa Goswami says that bhakti is divided into two, Vaidhi Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. Ragatmika Bhakti is actually the possession of the residents of Vrindavan. To qualify to enter into and become a resident of Vrindavan, one has to perform bhakti on the level of spontaneous devotional service. Mm-hmm. So there are 9 stages. Adhyao Shraddha. You have faith, and faith brings you into Sadhusanga. Sadhusanga means that association that performs devotional activities. You take up the activities. Sadhusanga leads you to bhajana kriya. As you perform the activities, you develop a taste for it and an attraction for it. You decide to make it your life's goal. Then, in order to consummate that and to make the path easy, one takes shelter of Krishna's representative. Now, that's the beginning. The first 2 stages where one is practicing to begin. The beginning comes with bhajana kriya, when you get initiation. And Prabhupada would always say, initiation means beginning. So up until then, are you making advancement? Yes. But your advancement will reach a certain level, and then it's required to take the next step. If we don't take the next step, you won't be able to move further on the path. But advancement is there up until a certain level where it becomes a feature. Now, do I want to continue with this activity, or do I want to do something else? And if I want to continue, in order to continue, I must accept Krishna in the form of his representative. And then, from there, an added element of mercy comes, and that is Krishna's direct mercy through the spiritual master who helps you overcome the obstacles which are blocking your path. And that stage is called anartha nivritti, getting rid of the blocks, stumbling blocks. And there are so many stumbling blocks. They're called 4 categories. Anarthas that deal with philosophical misconceptions, such as not knowing the process of sadhana and prema bhakti, not knowing what is the difference between philosophies that look like Krishna conscious philosophy but are not knowing who Krishna is, like that. These are called philosophical misconceptions. And there's one more. What's the other one? 4, there's 4 altogether. And not knowing your relationship with Krishna. Yeah. Based on Shastra. And then there's anarthas that come from pious activities. One qualifies themselves to achieve some material boon from their pious activities. And such as wanting to go to the heavenly planets, wanting to enjoy nice sense gratification, what is considered to be acceptable sense gratification by Shastras. which means the mode of goodness. The enjoyment of the mode of goodness. That's also a block. One wants to have power, so one performs devotional service to gain material power, or we might say mystical power. And devotees have mystical power. They do. You all have mystical power up to a certain level of your own advancement. And that means, just like you can see how it plays itself out. You go out in Sankirtan and you talk to somebody, they don't have any idea what you're selling, but they buy it anyway. You tell them something and they immediately... In other words, devotees can speak in such a way to convince people to do things that they would not normally choose to do. So that's mystical power. So that's one example. Other mystical powers are also mentioned, but they're more developed. Krishna mentions those in the Bhagavatam. Become lighter than the lightest, becoming heavier than the heaviest, becoming smaller than the smallest, to be able to create a planet, to be able to speak and control people's minds. So these different types of mystical powers. There are 18 mystical powers, 8 prominent and 10 secondary. And Krishna speaks about all 18 of them. And at the end he says, forget them. First he tells you all about them. And he says, you don't need them. So these things are another form of anartha, blocks. And the last one is liberation. Wanting to be free from the cycle of birth and death through the process of, what you might say, bhakti, which is infused with karma yoga and jnana yoga. So these are 4 types of pious anarthas. And then you have the impious, which is duplicity and deceit. That's one. Envy. Wanting to enjoy sense gratification, that falls into the category of sinful, such as we are restricted from the 4. No sex, no meat eating, no gambling, no intoxication. And then the last one, pratishta, which is the hardest one to get rid of. Wanting to be famous simply through the process of bhakti. Wanting material fame. Wanting to be known as a great devotee. These are all obstacles. And then the last one, which is the one that's the most difficult to overcome, and has a tendency to become still there all the way up to the higher levels of bhakti, and that is called offenses. Even great souls commit offenses. Although they don't try to, they may also do that, but because of becoming a little inattentive in their devotional service. I mentioned how that one Rupa Kaviraj offended Krishna Priya and he fell down. He was on the level of Bhava. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in giving in his analysis of these anarthas, with reference to the offenses, he says that these offenses can carry all the way up to prema bhakti. He says, only when you see Krishna face to face are you free from all offenses, or tendencies for offenses. So even, we have the example of Jai and Vijay, gatekeepers in Vaikuntha, they committed offenses to the 4 Kumaras. So offenses are the hardest ones. And it's easy to commit offenses. We don't even are aware of it, how we do it. If you're careless in your bhakti, it's easy to commit offenses. If you're whimsical in your bhakti, if you're, not attentive, it's easy to commit offenses. And then there's 4 kinds of offenses. Offenses to the holy name, which we know, the 10 offenses. Offenses to the deity, That means offenses while being in the temple or in front of the deity, either one. It can be in the temple even if the deity is closed. That's also considered to be offenses to the deity. Offenses to the holy name, offenses to the Vaishnavas, which is the most severe, and offenses to people in general, even the non-devotees. Because they're also part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore we shouldn't cause them unnecessary difficulty. Therefore, we're always respectful even to the non-devotees, although we don't associate intimately with them. Still, we respect them as who for the fact that they are also dear to Krishna, although they're under the influence of Krishna's external energy. So yeah, these offenses carry through. So when one frees themselves from 75% of the offenses, or anarthas, one can move past anartha nivritti into nishta. Nishta means you're fixed. No matter what happens, you're not going to go away. Happiness and distress do not disturb you. They'll stay difficult, and reverses in devotional service do not disturb one who is on that level of practice. And then nishta, when it reaches ruchi, then on that stage, Brahma Bhuta, Prasanatma, Nasoshati, Nakangshati, Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Mad Bhakti Lavate Param, and on that level, one is joyful. Prabhupada used to say to us, you're not happy, you're in Maya. And he wasn't just saying that. Krishna consciousness is meant to make you happy. If you're not happy, then that's a good way to see where you are. You're supposed to be happy, because this is a process of susukam kartavam bayam. It's a process for making you happy. But that happiness on that level is not intermittent. That's consistent, that's constant. One is feeling satisfied and happy within themselves at all times. That's on the platform of ruchi. There is where one starts to move into the mellows of spontaneous devotional service, which is ultimately the goal of devotional service. And here, Raghunath Das Goswami says, one should hear about and worship these three persons. But then he says not only these three, but all of the, residents of Vrindavan who are in those same categories. In other words, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, sometimes he's called the 7th Goswami. So great souls like that. And how do we worship them? We hear about them. We read their books. We discuss the philosophy that they present to us. We take an interest in their personal lives also. There are books about Narottam Das, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Vishwanath Chakravarti, and all of the great souls have their lives actually written in biographical presentations. So yeah, to take interest in them. So this is what Raghunath Das Goswami is saying in this particular one. And then he says, then one can move naturally into the level of spontaneous devotional service, which is the esoteric path, like that. So when advancement comes by rules and regulations, that's called Vaidhi Bhakti. And when advancement comes through following in the footsteps of the residents of Vrindavan and executing the sadhana of Raganuga Bhakti, there is also a sadhana that is given by the spiritual teachers. Then one can understand the higher levels of bhakti, the Ragatmikas, those who are fixed in the mood of Vrindavan. And then those who are fixed are not only in the gopis, but they're also Sakas, Krishna's friends, his parents also. So Krishna has outstanding personalities in Dasya, Ratak, and Patrak. And his friends are Ujjwala and Subala. And parental, it's Nanda, Yasoda, Rohini, like that. And in Madhurya, it's Chandravali, Radharani, Lalita, Vishaka, like that. So to hear about them, to worship them, to hear if they've written, just like, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami. At the end of every one of his chapters in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he doesn't fail to honor, he says, he offers his obeisances to Rupa and Raghunath, which are the chief amongst the Goswamis for us. Rupa and Raghunath Goswami and Rupa Goswami, like that. Okay? So hear about their works, read their books, go in deeper into that mood. That opens up the door to Radha and Krishna attraction. And Prabhupada also says the Goswamis are the heir to all of the philosophical fortune given by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that everything is there in their works. So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Ujjwala Nilamani, some of the Jaiva Dharma, so many, of course, Chaitanya Charitamrita by Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, represented by Srila Prabhupada. So, read books. And we have so many books, and therefore they have a purpose, not to all right, take a look at my library. I can see you have a lot of dust on it. Yeah, because I don't move the books around and keep them where they are, they're deities. No, read them. And we have, there's one thing you might say is quite unique in our society is we have so many books. So many. The books of the Goswamis, books given by Srila Prabhupada, and in many cases, not all, but many of the books of his disciples also, which illustrate Srila Prabhupada's teachings, presenting them in a more, from a different angle of vision, like that. Any comments, questions on this particular? He says, by doing that, you'll open up the door to Radha and Krishna worship. Was Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he sings one song, Visaya Chadiya. What's that one? When will I be qualified to understand the writings of the six Goswamis? Praise like that. So we should also consider that as part of the sadhana for opening up the mood of Vrindavan, to hear from these great souls. Because they're on a level of spontaneous devotional service. They're not writing simply from philosophical knowledge, they're writing from realization. They're writing from realization. They're actually visualizing. They're coming to the platform of actually seeing the pastimes of Radha and Krishna in their mind. It's like you have the example, Rupa Goswami was in one of his meditations, and in his meditation, he saw Radharani with her girlfriends, and Radharani has a long braid coming down her back. So while he was in that meditation, he saw that braid on Radharani, and he thought it was a snake. So he got alarmed in his meditation and he said, "Be careful, there's a snake, there's a snake, and there's a snake," in his meditation. And then all of a sudden, the girls just turned around, started laughing, and ran. And then his meditation broke. And then he told that to Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami says, "Don't you know? It's described that Radharani's braid is like a long black snake." So he wasn't able to remember that in his meditations. So they actually enter many times into a trance of seeing Radharani's, Krishna's pastimes. And that's available for everyone, but that's a high level of absorption. Then you're no longer in the material world anymore. Any questions, comments? Yes, Shamlal.
Krishna Maharaj, my all obeisances always to Srila Prabhupada. Verse 1, you talked about one-pointedness. Can you elaborate what one-pointedness means? I know you described the triangle and going on. But anything else?
I can give you a material example. I don't want to. Have you ever really fallen in love? No? Then you don't know what one-pointedness is. Then.
My wife can testify.
Is there anybody here that's really fallen in love? Nobody will admit it anyway. Then all you can think about is that person. That's all. That's all you can do. When will you be with them? What are they doing? How you can be happy together? It's so many. That one person occupies your whole mind all the time. Even if you're doing other things, you can't really focus on those other things. That's one-pointedness. People in the material world can do that. But it's not exactly what we say, transcendentally pleasing, but they focus on someone that they really, really become attached to. And their minds become preoccupied with that person. That's one-pointedness. So we can do that, but the object becomes Krishna, or the spiritual master, or the process of activities in devotional service. One-pointedness, fixed. And if you want to talk to that person, you have to bring up the subjects they're interested in. So yeah. Yes, Radha Vinodini.
My question is connected to more verses, because here it's again the mind is addressed, and you said that in different ways he addresses the minds, and how can we decide in which mood how to address our mind when it should be controlled or convinced to do something else? So
Well, if you see it running away, you say, "My dear restless mind, please put your restlessness to rest. And listen to what I have to say, because it's the best. I'm not there to give you jest, and I'm not going to tell you to take rest. But just listen, and you'll get the best." All right? So if you see your mind restless, if you see your mind lazy, hey mind, why become lazy? Don't you know it leads to becoming crazy? And you don't want to become crazy, because if you do, I don't have another one. Then you'll become no better than an ordinary daisy. So So you can entreat your mind. You can cajole your mind. You can reprimand your mind. You can beg, as Raghunath does in the first one. He begs his mind. One time he says, "Oh, uncomprehending mind, I'm telling you what you should understand, and you still can't understand it." Uncomprehending mind. So yeah, these are all ways. Choose what is appropriate at the time.
My confusion was that because as I see, many times we consider only just repressing the mind as the only way.
Yeah, well, Krishna also says, he compares to controlling the mind as like trying to break a horse. Breaking a horse is not easy. That means to control the horse. So those who control the horse know that the horse is controlled by the mouth. If you want to control the horse, you control his mouth. So you put the piece in the mouth and you grab the reins. So he's controlled by the reins that's connected to his mouth. Now if you pull too hard on the reins, the horse will jump. And if you don't give it enough,
Slack.
if you give it too much slack, it's going to go wherever it wants to go. So Krishna says, learn how to break the horse, control the horse, not too much, not too little. Those who force their mind, the mind will jump back and they just snap back, and then they'll be even worse off than before. Those who don't make any efforts, then the mind just goes where it wants to go. You have to find that medium. And he compares it to riding a horse. Have you ever ridden a horse? You have, okay. I thought you would. Okay.
Not many times, but it was funny because there were different ways how to direct the horse, and I mixed them. So one way I told it to go to left, and the other to turn to right. And sometimes I do this with my mind now.
Well, you got the right program anyway. Yeah, but then, like it says, when you try to break a horse, it's not broken initially. You have to keep working with it. Because the mind has been, what we say, with us for many births. And mostly it's been under the control of the material energy. So now we're trying to break it out of that control. It's not easy. In other words, it takes some effort. Devotional service, you can't just let things flow, because you'll flow downstream. Yeah, take it easy, Swami. No, taking it easy means, you're going the other way. There's an effort that has to be there always in devotional service. Yeah. Let's see, we got the questions from Mukunda? Raj Mukund.
Thank you so much. I've got a question for you, and I think you might not answer it.
Okay.
But I'll ask it anyway. And I'm going to give you 4 options.
Okay. I told you should make him what is it called? The MC? Yeah.
So, if you were given an option to go to a destination after this life, and the options that Krishna gives you, okay, you can decide where you want to be. One option is entering Vrindavan and the Vrindavan pastimes. That's one option. The second option is attending Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, being with Lord Chaitanya's associates. The third option is being with Prabhupada and attending his pastimes anywhere. And the fourth option is being Candramauli Swami and Prabhupada's representative and helping people here as you are. Which option would you pick?
Well, that's easy. I do all four.
You're already doing all four, Guru Maharaj.
Well, I don't know.
Nikunja, you know, Ratikeli Siksa, Yaya Lipir Yukti Rapekshaniya.
No, each one of them we can do at different times. Why limit yourself? Well, why take only one type of ecstasy? Thank you. You can include that in your book, your upcoming book. It's got an upcoming book. Yes.
Guru Maharaj, you said in the previous session that you would describe a little bit about the types of pride, and we were having a little discussion, Radha Vinodini and myself. Of course, I was just speculating, but if you could kindly share what it exactly entails and how to overcome it. You said you would talk about the types of pride.
Oh, the types of pride. So that's
you remember in the previous session you said we will talk about the three types. You said like that?
I said that?
Yeah, you made a note that you will find the note.
3 ways.
I-
Sorry. 3 ways to.
No,
Was it-
what
was
is
it
the
talking about?
qualifications for accepting and performing the activities that Raghunath Das Goswami is asking us to do is faith. And I mentioned that there was three categories of faith, right? Yeah. I think I mentioned too. I'll have a
Faith in the sadhus, the devotees of the Lord, and faith minimizes fruitive desires. Said those 3 things.
yeah. Let me see what it's here somewhere. Great notes, can't find anything. Oh, here it is. Eligible to receive the instructions of verse 1. And 1 is strata faith. 2 is faith that comes from the association of sadhus. One can just have faith, and the other one comes by associating with and faith that diminishes fruit of desires. So that's part of entering into the activities that are being recommended for us, having that faith. It's all about faith. The whole process of bhakti is faith. Faith is supported by transcendental knowledge. Faith is really fortified by devotee association. That's why we have these meetings. This really brings your faith up in a very significant way. And the stronger you are in your faith, the easier it is to execute devotional service, because you don't have to worry about anything, you're fixed. Devotional service becomes natural. Faith. And then sometimes devotees say, well, I have faith in the process, I have faith in the Guru, I have faith in Krishna, but I don't have faith in myself. Right? They say that. And then, well, if you have faith in these other categories, then they will also qualify you to succeed in your devotional service. Because by their mercy you receive the necessary strength and ability to be successful. You can't do it on your own, but you can access that mercy coming from them by you're making it an endeavor. If you don't make the endeavor, as Krishna told Arjuna, fight for the sake of fighting. Never consider happiness and distress, honor or dishonor, victory or defeat. Fight because I'm asking you to do it. And then you'll be victorious because Krishna is giving us the instructions. All we have to do is carry it out. And then he gives the qualifications also. and the results too. Everything comes from Him, but we have to make the effort, that's all. I'll chant when I feel like. Well, good luck. You'll be there forever. Chant because it is required for your spiritual advancement. And then you accept the mercy of the Lord. Everything depends on mercy. Everything depends on mercy. Jai Shri Shri Radha Govinda Madhava ki Jai, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki Jai, Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki Jai. Okay? How many pairs of glasses you have? She took one off and there's still one on. Can you do that again?
We'll have light Guru Maharaj what to do.
I thought that was some magic trick or something. He's always here to give us some spiritual upliftment. Really, I'm serious. I'm not just joking. In different ways.
She was uplifting us on the train all the way here.
I was with Hridayananda Maharaj, and he was telling me, I was with Prabhupada in Boston. I was giving a lecture, and I was just making the class laugh the whole time. And the class there was no break in the laughter. It was like, then devotees were like rolling and roaring, because he's funny. I mean, he's really witty. And so at the end, I'm walking out, and Prabhupada's coming right towards me, and he's looking very serious. And I'm thinking, oh no, I'm going to get it now. So then I stopped, Prabhupada stopped, and Prabhupada looked at me and he smiled. He said, very good, you make the devotees laugh. And then he walked away. Thank you.
At least I'm doing some service this way, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for allowing me to serve.
I'm not allowing you, you're there. Whether I give the allowance or not, it doesn't matter. But I used to try to monitor, but now I gave up. This is an inside joke. She's good. Everywhere she goes, she makes people Krishna conscious. She's just the other day, she went to the airport to fly here, I think it was. And she was preaching, taking photos with people, giving them mantra cards, connecting with them on a longer basis. And everywhere she goes, she just talks to people and they like her. She's good. When I read that, she sent me the whole account. I was thinking, you can do whatever you want because you're preaching and that's all that counts. Because anyone who's preaching, Krishna gives them special favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah. Vrindavan Prabhu, question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. It's related to the previous verse, Maharaj, but somehow I felt very, very happy as I take one takeaway from that verse or from that class. It was a good reminder to understand that Radha Krishna is our key subject matter or key object where we need to really focus upon, especially the Vrindavan mode.
Right.
And normally when we see other deity, like when you explained about Nrsimhadev, gave me that kind of reminder that every deity has something for us to push towards Radha Krishna in Vrindavan
Yeah.
movie. Like Nrsimha Devi explained, similarly Balramji, he's always serving. So like our mood also, like whenever we are going down, he's allowing or pushing us that how to serve better. Maybe Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, again by holy name, Nityananda Prabhu, again through instruction and through Adi Guru and Guru. So somehow I felt like, yes, like whenever we see any deity,
Everything is connected to Radha and Krishna. For you, I know that, so there's no question about that. For us, we have to somehow learn how to connect the dots, but it's true, yeah. It says, when you go traveling and you see different deities, if your love for your actual deity is manifested through the deities that you're seeing. You see your deity in other deities. Yeah. So see, yeah. So Raghunath Das Goswami, he can't see anything but his service to Radharani. That's all he can see. Anything else?
thank you, Maharaj.
Yes, Radhapati.
In the process of devotional service, it's inevitable sometimes to feel some crises of faith.
Crisis of faith.
Whether that's in the process, or the guru, or the shiksha guru, or the institution. What are the, how do we maturely deal with those when they come?
Discuss it with others and see if it actually is valid or not. Because a lot of times it might be initiated by something you perceive, but you may perceive it in the wrong way. So the good that you should discuss with senior devotees. That way you get some understanding. Even if you don't initially get it from the first person, you can talk to many devotees and see if, when it gets validated by repetition, then you understand whether it's actually a crisis of faith or just a wrong perception of what you're experiencing. A different perception, yeah.
And is it necessary to have crises of faith to progress?
No, faith should also be continuous. It should be constantly growing as you perform your devotional service. Crisis of faith means really based on really not sufficient knowledge. When you have sufficient knowledge, then all these things, because the process works. And if we didn't have examples, then we would be speaking theoretically. But we have so many examples of devotees who have left their body, and in the last moments of their life, they were completely absorbed in, Radha and Krishna. We have the example of Sudama Maharaj, very close associate of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada taught him to cook, gave him a lot of responsibilities for preaching. He used to talk to Prabhupada quite regularly. And then he left his sannyas for whatever reason, we don't know. Got married, and then that didn't work out, and then after that fell apart, he left ISKCON and went back to many of his old ways, which were somewhat sinful. And for a long time he was in that. But then he got terminal cancer. And so he decided to come back to Krishna consciousness when he was dying. So the devotees were taking care of him for a few weeks. And then at one point, he was sitting in the bed, and then he turned and he looked at the door and he said, "Prabhupada, "You've come!" And that was the last thing, and then he left. So Prabhupada came to him in the last moment to take him. Because he had done such valuable service. And Prabhupada put a lot of, what we say, special mercy on the early devotees because they're the ones that helped him build the movement. And so Prabhupada was really grateful for towards those devotees. Not that he was partial, but it's just natural. He felt really, really grateful to the devotees who really helped him begin the movement when it was so difficult. And he was one of them. So Prabhupada showed him special mercy. Although he had left and committed sinful activities, that was all wiped away at the time of death. So yeah, we see this is one of many examples like that. How the mercy of the spiritual master can come and change everything. Because whatever the spiritual master ordains, Krishna accepts. At least in relationship to disciples. So getting Guru's mercy is meaning is getting Krishna's mercy. Yeah, so if you have these moments, you should know that at what point that something is happening to either to test your faith or there's some misconception or lack of understanding, that's all. Because the process works, no doubt. We can see there's hundreds and hundreds of examples, thousands of examples. Okay. Anything else? Sridevi, you got all the questions. Anybody else? Yes, Satyabhama. Can you tell the story how you got your name? You can tell that later. It's really a nice story.
Yesterday you mentioned that whoever is doing preaching is already in the form of internal, like, he's doing that service, he's in service of Radha Krishna. But many a times when we are, I personally, I'm talking about myself as being a practitioner sadhaka and still trying to preach when we feel that we don't have the ability to do that, but we just try to do, serve as best of our ability to serve Srila Prabhupada's mission. But there are many times we are unsuccessful, definitely, like there are so much, you don't get...
But I disagree. Because any efforts that you make in preaching, even if it apparently doesn't bring about a certain desired result, is successful. As Bhaktisiddhanta says, Saraswati says, if nobody comes, preach to the four walls. And then you'll also receive Krishna's mercy. And preaching is such an, what's the word? Is very dear to Krishna. Why? Because Krishna comes to the material world to uplift the conditioned souls. So anyone who's doing that work, they're doing Krishna's internal work to try to help Krishna bring souls to him. So so even if it doesn't have immediate results, it has some effect. Just like we can speak philosophically, we can give examples, we can speak from Shastra, and people may or may not take it. But then again, when things happen in their life, some crisis, some difficulties, some reverses, then all of that preaching has relevancy. They go back to that and they remember.
So how do we take these failures as, like, coming back to rather at this point about crisis in faith, is how do we keep our faith strong at the time when we get failures?
Sarusanga, sarusanga. Sarva Shastri Hoy, Lavamatta Sarva Sangye, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. Faith, association. Without association, we can't make it, no matter who we are. What's the time now? How much time we have left?
12 minutes.
12 minutes? Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. Sri Devi.
Mataji,
Where?
Mataji, that was a question.
Oh, Shama. Oh, Nitya Kishori. Oh, that, yeah.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. It's a question connected to preaching, but also to something you said yesterday in the introductory lecture, when you were speaking about exoteric and esoteric paths.
Mm-hmm.
You said that the activities externally can appear the same, but the quality and the value of the practice depends on the consciousness. So I would like to hear from you in preaching, how much of the quality or impact of preaching depends on the consciousness and how much on the activity. Because on one hand side we hear that everything is preaching, cleaning of the temple, worshipping the deities, making sweets for the deities. But then also we hear preaching is direct preaching, first line, distributing books and lecturing. So how much
What is preaching?
of the quality of preaching depends on the consciousness and how much on the activity?
Well, Prabhupada said if you repeat with what your spiritual master said, then that's acceptable, that's good. But if you're actually living according to what you're speaking, there's conviction there. And when you speak, that conviction comes through based on your own level of practice. And then it has more potency. So the potency is your conviction based on what you're speaking. Sometimes we use the opposite. Your actions are so loud I can't hear what you're saying. In other words, one is not following, but it's just speaking. Therefore, their effects is very little or none. But those who live according to what they're saying, that has great merit and great potency. That's one of the things they ask me sometimes. What did you like most about Prabhupada? I said, when he spoke with conviction. He said, this is it. Not maybe, perhaps, I think, choose, this is it. And he said it with such conviction that it came across like, yeah, this is it. The conviction made it receptacle, went right to the heart, inspired the mind. So that conviction is really the strength of the preaching. When you're living and practicing according to what you're saying, it has greater effect than if you're just speaking theoretically. And the second one is?
Here Maharaj also gave the example of direct preaching as lecturing. But how much can other activities of devotional service also be seen as preaching, which are not direct preaching?
Well, I heard Prabhupada mention that preaching means to change the heart. Or you might even say to bring people closer to Krishna in some form. Just being nice to someone may encourage them to become more connected to Krishna consciousness. That's also preaching. Example. It was in Europe somewhere, I don't remember where. One lady was coming to the temple and she was wearing a mini skirt, hair straight up, with all kinds of makeup and decorations. She looked like a deity. She came to the temple and the devotees got a little shocked. And they actually went to her and said, you can't come in there like this. You're not properly dressed. So she left, but then she came back again, same way. And so they came to her again and told her, we told you, you have to, become more, what's the word, demure? You know the word demure?
Okay.
Means chaste. And she didn't listen. So the devotees they heavied her out. And then she decided, I'm not coming anymore. The devotees don't want me to come. So, but then not long after that, the word came that Prabhupada was coming. She also was reading Prabhupada's book, so she thought, I want to meet their teacher. So she came. It was a Sunday lecture. And Prabhupada had taken the Vyasa son. He was addressing the Duke group. He had just got there. And she walks in. Same way. And she's looking for a seat. And Prabhupada noticed her. He says, oh, thank you for coming. You look very nice today. And she was like, wow, your teacher's really cool. So she found her seat and sat there and listened to the lecture. And that same night she said, if that pleases the devotees, then I'll do it. And then she changed her hairdo and took it down and it became changed. All of Prabhupada didn't see her as a body, he saw her as a soul who's come to find out about Krishna. So that's preaching. And that's an extreme example, but that's how, somehow or other, encouraging people on the level that they're at, rather than putting them down. You're not on that level, therefore you're in mine. That doesn't really attract anyone, especially adults. Adults, you don't chastise adults, you chastise children, because they need it. But adults, it doesn't go anywhere, because you have to actually reach them in a way that they can accept and understand. So one of the means is just to welcome people on the level they are and give them a chance to practice. Encourage them in the positive way. Prabhupada never introduced a lot of the rules and regulations until later. So yeah, that's preaching. That's one form of preaching. One time I was at one Sangha, it was a seminar program in Canada, near Montreal, and a large group of devotees. And we decided to think of how many different ways we could preach. So that became the discussion. And we came up with 44 different ways you can preach. Such as writing articles, going on, doing videos, passing out prasadam. So there's so many ways. All of it is outreach. How can we reach out and bring someone closer by some activity we're performing? That's preaching. That's the real definition. The streamlined definition means to sit and give a lecture or speak something philosophical. We give that the title preaching, but that's too exclusive. That's not really the full definition. Is that all right? You can challenge it. I respect your challenging. Is that okay? Okay. Yes, Buddha Bhavana Prabhu. Jai Ho. How, we still have 12 minutes? 3. You know the story in India. One man, he goes to the counter. When's the plane coming? It'll be here in 20 minutes. He comes back in 20 minutes. The guy said, I told you, 20 minutes. That's India.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So thank you for the class. In relation to some comments you made about preaching, we see that sometimes different preaching initiatives are going on, and they're having various effects in terms of how many people they reach and so on. And we also see that sometimes some of the individuals involved in the preaching or leading into the preaching, or who are doing the preaching, they may or may not always be behaving in, let's say, such a cooperative way. So let's say I'm leading a preaching, but while I'm leading this preaching, I'm also undermining the other preaching that's going on. So sometimes like that. So, and still, the preaching that's being done, it's reaching out to significant numbers of people, etc.
It's not really having any effect. Krishna won't accept that. If you're trying to undermine somebody else and call it that you're doing the best, and it's just false pride, or it's actually envy. And it can't be accepted as devotional service. No.
So then how do we understand the fact that some people are still hearing about Krishna consciousness, philosophy and so on? So how do we understand that?
Unless he changes, otherwise it's gonna, so whatever he initially brings in won't last. Because that attitude is not at all devotional. In fact, it's very materialistic. It's pretty much in the lower modes. It's mixed with that. But even the people they bring in may not also be. What method is he using to preach that is so supreme that he thinks that's the ideal?
It could be anything.
Yeah. Undermining others is not devotional service. Encouraging others is devotional service. If someone is doing something to reach out in some way, we should appreciate it. Maybe we're doing more and having more results, but still, anything that is offered is seen by Krishna as very glorious. Krishna says, "Oh, you're very nice. You're doing this." For Krishna, accepts even the smallest as being something very wonderful. So if we're going to undermine that, we're actually going against Krishna.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a wrong attitude. Satyabhama, I still have 3 minutes. This will be the last question, and then there was a break for lunch.
Just wanted to ask, related to what Dr. Prabhu is asked, what if someone else had that attitude towards you? How do you deal with that then?
Just go on with your preaching and ignore him.
Okay.
That's what I would do, but some people don't like it that way either. So what can you do? I mean, well, you could also reflect and see if there's some way I can improve. Maybe there's something about what I'm doing is not up to the standard. Let me see if I can improve. But if you can't come up with anything, but doesn't mean you should stop. That's a good question because it has relevance for all of us. Thank you. Okay, and we have some announcements, or we have to announce the announcer.